Welcome to our lovely future humans, our 5D collective. Those who are new, let's begin with, if I'm telling you the mind, it's not made, it's not meant to suffer. And that emotional steadiness helps us to bring out our full potential, which involves the mind's potential. Do you believe me? Do you have questions? Are you excited to hear about it? Are you like, this is bullshit kind of deal? All that good stuff. And here's the thing. I'm a future human, FYI, 5D mystic. So you're going to get some woo-woo-ness in the mix of things. And I'm always trying to ensure that people are aware of at least a little bit of where I come from before we get into it. And then I'm trying to organize 1, 2, 3. So your benefits, the stories, and let's see how fun it is to be human. So with the pay hip bundles and the new additions, the journal prompts and the mindset practices, they're not there yet, the new ones. But we have been discussing how self-leaders, we don't confuse emotion intensity with that which is truth. So our very strong emotions, our feelings, they're not facts. And so we're not our activated states. And that's why when I say the mind wasn't meant for suffering and is not made for suffering, or that it has the capacity to do more, it's because of so many people actually thinking the mind is something bad, that you need to awaken from it, but they're not connecting the dots from the emotional plane. So they're not looking at their body. And they're not in any way, shape, or form aware of the fact that if you have emotional steadiness, you will never have suffered one day of your life with the mind. Right here. Okay, so when you have a steady self, and I have all the attachment trauma information to add to the self-help, to the personal growth and development, there's no question in your mind. Okay, so in 2 minutes, whatever you will have understood is mind doesn't suffer because you're not created bad. That's what I'm trying to get to. And those who think that instead we are created bad, humans, those are the same ones who I don't really have anything to say to from the spiritual to the scientific perspective, because 1, with God, he created us perfect. 2, with brain science and attachment trauma, I know it. And then I know who are the ones who suffer the mind. It's the same ones who don't get their somatic stability and mastery on point because they don't want to move into ventral energy. So they're not trying to break the habit of reactivity every day with micro habits of, I'm going to get a funny bone. I'm going to share with you some stories from my teenage years. And that's about how to respond versus react, but also how to know that my child parts come with me and I'm the one who protects this person, the 3-year-old, the 1-year-old, the 8-year-old, because all of the child parts are usually the ones whose feelings get hurt, that those who don't own their own, because they don't want to, again. So it's not a race, it's not a competition, there's not a good and bad team in the way of malevolent and benevolent. There is those who are good understand all humans are made the same. And with attachment trauma education, there's no lack of imagination for evil, there's lack of education for it. And really, let's not use that word in the same way that those who are not capable to put a hand on their heart and remind themselves that they're just as human as anybody else, and so we all have the embodied brain. And when you understand how the first 3 years of life affect you, that's why Robert Sapolsky's book Determined, I tease it, but I tease it because we do have free will, in my subjective opinion. He gives a very good explanation of why, instead, he believes we've been determined. And I haven't read it yet, but I will explain to you what the brain is made of. It's bilateral, vertical, overall, integrated, right? The embodied brain. So you got a nervous system that you wield, and you got 2 sides of brain that you wield. And when you wield them, integration and wholeness. This is where you will be having a good time with the episode, with the stories, and you'll also be able to relate, because if you respond consciously, which is what I'm talking about, what you want will happen. And if, on the other hand, you react compulsively, what someone else wants will happen. Sadhguru, thank you, but half. Because when people are actively reacting compulsively, they're interacting with each other's charges, and they're each other's maladaptive patterns of behavior, and each other's sympathetic. And so they have no benefit. It's called an adaptive child part. Thanks, Terry Real. He helps couples who want to make it into functional adults. I'm a functional child adult because I'm going to have a good time no matter what. If I have it dysregulated, I know how to differentiate because I know how to self-regulate, and I am choosing to be Maria. I'm going to get to my teenage stories in a minute. So personal growth is, alongside spiritual growth, behavioral mastering, not changing. You don't change yourself because yourself, like Dr. Daniel Siegel spells it out, it's a verb. Those who nounify themselves, they get very boring, FYI. They assume they know everything, and then they get rigid, and I'm not going to talk about the ones who don't own their mind, because they do suffer life. They suffer life's meaning, they suffer their mind, they suffer their body, and they drag their feet, and that's where they stagnate, and it's unfortunate because all they have to do is go to a good therapist and heal themselves. And once they own their mind, they're going to have a good time because they own their body. And so a healthy mind is a mind that allows optimal self-organization and allows FACES flow. FACES is Dr. Daniel Siegel's acronym for flexibility, adaptability, coherence, energization, and stability. Flow is that flow state. So when you have a higher self, and that really just means that you are mature, you will not be painting a picture of the world with this word suffering, nor will you suffer relationships, because your solo self inside of you is safe to be you, your own safe haven, secure base. Here's a secure attachment. And then when you're with others, you're interconnected, you're able to self-regulate because you're able to differentiate. That means you own your own healthy, it's not just boundaries, because you don't really need to practice it. It's like second nature. That's your infinite higher, I call it human consciousness potential. So I'm coming to you with an integrated whole brain, embodied, securely attached person. And since as a kid, I've been aware and accountable and responsible. I have a right to all of my feelings. And in fact, they will be voiced when you give them a name. That's not the story. No, I give my feelings words. I'm angry. I'm sad. I'm mad, I'm afraid, I am going to be sad again. The suffering, again, I'm just going to bring it in, because when you're in your prefrontal and you're managing with a window welcome, you're not suffering it, you're not ruminating. So you can contemplate and use the mind, which is made for you. Our embodied brain is not made wrong. That's what I'm trying to get to as well. Okay, so personality pattern is a collection of values of how emotions, thought, and behavior happen across states and stages of life. That's one of the definitions, and this one was from Dr. Dan Siegel. As he also shares with us, we have temperament, which is not going to be determined by the attachment stuff, but that is related to the networks in the brainstem. And there's drive. So he talks about an agency drive, which means embodied empowerment, like actions that you take. The relational connection drive, so that's me in relationships with others, and that's bonding. And then we have the predictability and safety, which is certainty, and so that one has fear. The one with agency has anger. So those are the three main subcortical areas that he talks about that create temperament. And our temperament, he says, sticks with us. But that's why when you're whole, you're working with that. And those are the people who make use of the PayHip bundles and the mindset practices, journal prompts. Join us on Substack as well, where we continue these types of conversations, and we also have practices for our paid subscribers. So the mind is looking for patterns. It's really easy to spot 5 hands of people. Again, we're going to get to stories in a minute. And the pattern detector works with the brain, and the brain, though, is an anticipation machine. And so the brain is using all of the past. And this is why I don't want to bring all the attachment trauma or brain science stuff, but the point is our embodied brain works for our optimized safety. Now, Dr. Daniel Fox, he's another amazing therapist out there, and he spells out how the nervous system is seeking the same, and so you will have heard of that, okay? So what you want to repeat is stability, not unregulated intensity. And that's why the people who are not moving into their ventral energy are choosing to bypass, and there's your spiritual and somatic bypassers. And they will stay within the modulated embodiment. Alan Fogel, the book, if you want it, Restorative Embodiment and Resilience. And that's where he talks about restorative, I think also modulated and dysregulated. I haven't read it all yet, but okay, now with that, our solo self, we also have a relational self. And we have sensations, perspective, and agency. So this is really not complex But for you who might not be following all of it, I'm going to just use Maria gets to be herself. I'm a teenager. I get to definitely learn about emotionally immature people, and I get to have my own heartbreaks and all that great stuff. I have this teenage boyfriend. He's my first serious relationship. We were friends before we became boyfriend, girlfriend. Today we're still friends, and it's an amazing story to me, although those who hear me making fun of it might have different opinions, but that's the part of where I'm a person who can clearly say, and I've shared that with those who are like, you talk about your story. Well, yeah, I mean, my life. So it's not, I don't name people, I don't get into specifics in ways that, and if I ever do name, it's because I know that they're okay with it. So I'm just gonna let the people here know that these are personal stories, and I love all people, and when someone is judging any of it, I don't like it, but of course everybody has their own subjective opinion, right? So we get to hear each other's thoughts. And that's what a herd is made of. It's like Manny, Diego, and Sid. We all chime in. So the benefits of this episode for you is to, number one, gather our mind was not made to suffer. It was not meant for suffering, because you are, like the bears and the bees, made to optimize. So self-organization, my mind optimizes itself to the best possible capacity, which is me in a room being able to self-regulate in my ventral energy and then differentiate. And even though I may have a bunch of dysregulated people, I will maintain my frequency. And here's our 5D collective and the flow state. And that's the state of ease that comes from your own nervous system. You have it and I have it. I'm not doing anything different except for I can explain it and then talk to you about how anchoring ventral energy makes my body full of eustress, because I will still have stressful moments, but the eustress is not distress. And how mindfulness practices alongside mindset skills, Dr. Daniel Siegel's word mindset. So you sift sensations, images, feelings, and thoughts because, like Peter Levine would point out, you can contain sensations, images, CBAM, behaviors, affects, and meanings. Okay, so that's why we're breaking free from reactivity. We are not our own activated state. Our very strong feelings are not truths. They are signals. They're not our sovereign rulers. They are participating with us, and we will, with our own private journals and interactions, speak it up, spell it out. And that's the part of where, when you're doing it to grow yourself, you will continue to enjoy life from the flow state. And neuroscientists explain it's all human capacity. So selflessness, timelessness, effortlessness, and richness. I saw a video on it and I know it. And so, okay, and as we were saying, relationships are probably one of the most, I'm going to say, the biggest opportunities. Because with the world, it's more abstract, but with intimacy, it is directly related, right? So there is no giving, taking, or making love. You can only be loved. Thank you, Sadhguru. But we all have expectations, wanteds, right? So you work with that, which is why once you're mature enough within your own nervous system, it's easy for you to know what the right thing is to do. And it's not a good team and a bad team. And so here's where I'm going to pause and share. I'm a teenager. My boyfriend, he's cheated on me. It's the third time. I'm used to it by now, but I still love him. I believe he's going to be the one I marry. And I also believe we can make mistakes, and then we're also young. And today, I thank goodness, with polyamory, I have a lovely polyfidelity vessel, and I am somebody who knows that love isn't stingy. So when I hear people saying they give numbers to each other, I'm like, wow, that's like, really? You objectify? That's not cool. Like, it's kind of like if you say a parent loves one child more than another. Sure, we can tease. I and my younger sister tease my mother all the time. And yes, that's right, you got it. We like to tease, but we all know that she loves us all the same. And in fact, actually, at the end of the day, the parent has different relationships with each child. We have our own we sphere, you see what I'm saying? So you have a unique relationship and bond. Now those bonds, they will grow and they will become secure connections when you are your own safe haven, secure base, because you're not holding on a finger any of those things that take place. So when we have misalignment, like my BFFF, I'm going to get to the story, or the boyfriend, the teenage boyfriend. So there can be misalignments. That's not reason enough for somebody to cancel or block or unfriend or do any of that. Let me call you a name. So when you see emotionally immature behavior, they like to use evil and malevolent, and they will continue to use words. It's not about the words, it's the charge behind it. Okay, so I'll use words wrong, but I'll use words interchangeably. And so sometimes people will say, but you're saying this, and now you're saying that. And so here's the part of where, when you have those who are not using the consilience approach, which comes with two sides of the brain, and that means I can put A, B, C, D, F, G, and they can touch each other, and you're just hanging out and having a good time. Okay, so that's another aspect to remind yourself of. Emotionally mature people, the love-based leaders, those are the ones who raise leaders, because we actively will be a herd like Manny, Diego, and Sid that's diverse and that is unconditionally loving with flaws and imperfections, and we don't apply that which is, let me school you with rigidity, which is casting stones. Just so we are clear, the integration of the brain is the wholeness of the body and the mind, and with that harmony, it's called emotional intelligence for a reason. So those who doubt the mental mastery and the mental capacity of any one of us, they don't know their own potential yet. It will be very clear to me if I have in my presence somebody who is expanding, because their body will be this. And when they are standing up in their ventral vagal state and saying no, it will not be a small little frequency with vindictiveness, self-righteousness, and that which is passing down a baton, and so passing to the next generation that which is not only trauma but also hatred and vindictiveness. Anyone know about Cain and Abel? Okay, so when I look at that story today, I just know that the one who was unsatisfied, self-loathing, gut-wrenched, torn apart. It has a solution. It's called getting fulfilled from your body to your mind, and then for the human herd to understand what happens when we get rejected and when we have not the 1/3 attunement repairing rupture, still passing down the baton of hatred. They're not teaching humility, they're not teaching forgiveness. So they're not teaching what I learned from Jesus. Nope. And they're not actually reminding themselves that none of them are God. And they're also seemingly not noticing the inconsistency. God made us perfect, so you must have missed that part in your ear. And when science shows why we have imperfection, suffering, people who were shamed, and so their heart is broken, self-loathing, gut-wrenched, torn apart, I know exactly why Cain and Abel, the story is there. It's not a monster, a devil, or a demon. No, it's called sibling rivalry, which can be, by the way, healed, but we can't force someone to take their health seriously. And when they're all hanging around the ones who say, with one little finger, I'm going to dismantle the mental health professionals, and they're not a mental health professional, and then you got a bunch more who are separate from their professionals. Look, I studied the study of the narcissist. They're not healable. My colleagues are against me. Those are called groupies for Maria. They're all pseudo-intellectuals for Maria, and as fear-based leaders do, they create followers, and they don't have heals. They have not healed themselves. They have charges for us. So the ones who validate their emotional plane are validating their charges, and therefore they're actively validating their activated states and saying, we're this. Their mind is suffering still, their heart is closed off, and then they pass on hatred batons. And they talk about justice and injustice, and they say that the only way to have justice is by... And they continue with the same survivorship mannerisms of this survival mode. And so here's where peace is not about us not having that which is diversity, if you will. Peace is going to be, by the way, achieved at some point because our species moves forward. It's not here yet, I know that. I get looked at like a weird whack job by those who think I'm utopistic and gullible and that I don't know what I'm talking about. FYI, believe me, the eyes of people who don't understand when you're saying, look, clairvoyance and clairaudience and all the spiritual gifts, whatever you want to call them, and the capacity, I come from the future, or just, you know what, let me put it all this, I learned attachment trauma education. Look, I'm adding up all the dots, not on purpose. It didn't fall on my lap. I learned it because I wanted to study it. Okay, so you get my drift. The future will be fine is what I'm getting to. But no, I don't have proof. But then again, wait for it. Hold on. What's a mystic? Where are you, lovely? There's a lovely person that I quoted from, what's his face? Shoot. I forgot his name. Okay, I'm forgetting his name, but I've mentioned him before. But as he points out, John O'Donoghue, that's his name. And I believe he was a Catholic priest or something like that. But he defines mystic to lovely Dr. Daniel Siegel, someone who believes in the reality of the invisible. And so when I think of being grounded in reality, I know that sciences are showing how our mind is made amazingly when it's healthy. Obviously, when it's not, we have suffering. Now, those who still suffer life, if they found themselves first, and then they would go out into the world with an integrated, securely attached, safe haven, secure-based brain, they would be able to, like I'm talking to you right now, understand not only an explanation, but also there's no justification. So it's not, let's say there's all are good in the sense of doing good. No, but we can advance our species because we understand how it works. So peace is going to arrive, and it already always arrives, and intelligence is out there. And it is the ones who are using the mind that is mine and yours effectively, and the ones who are using it with suspicious minds, they're not the ones that are gonna actually see everything. Why? Because so my mind, it is looking for patterns, and my brain is getting ready for the next anticipation of what comes next. But my brain is using past stuff. And if I haven't uncharged past stuff, I'm not really spotting patterns. I am spotting, you remember how we have a bias when we're looking for something because we're expecting it? And so the blind ones, they're blind and deaf. They speak, but they don't notice their own invisible blinders. Okay, and so that's one of the aspects of when you're in the now and the present, and you're able to comprehend what I just talked about in our first 20 minutes, you're going to understand that no one who's in the emotional intelligence group of people who are using their mind effectively is actually scared of people who are using survivorship bias, their ancient history, and are playing 0 to 8-year-old non-metabolized trauma time on a wheelhouse. It's not because we don't understand what they're bringing to the table, it's because we have another group. And it might be a minority, it doesn't really matter, because that group is still in the same places that that other group is, and they know how to fill the gap, and they know how to see clearly what a pattern is. And then their own anticipatory organ knows, I'm not going to only use the past, I sit here with the past, in my prefrontal cortex I go, and I remind myself, so my BFF of all times, I told her, I said, I don't understand why you didn't tell me the truth. You know, I forgive. I said yes to Jesus, God, Holy Spirit. I forgave him. It's the third time now. What's the deal? And all she could say was she was afraid. And that didn't make sense. But today, with all the information of attachment trauma education, insecure people don't know how to speak the truth. Like my facade friend, who also lied to me. Only man I ever stopped talking to for a whole 5 years. I did it too. I didn't block him though, but I told him, I gave him a warning. I said, you've disrespected our friendship due to the fact that I don't play pretend with friends. And he's a bond. That's what I meant, because I have other friends too. They're different types of bonds. So I can not give two shits if they lie to me or not, because this is a sacred bond, if you will. So he's like a brother. And so I said, because you disrespected our bond, I'm not talking to you anymore. But when shit hit the fan, and I know my friend has no friends because he's a person who has always done out of convenience everything. So he had one friend who abandoned him every time he was in the shithole because they were like little roosters wanting the same girls. It was not hilarious. Yeah, it was hilarious. I'm like, what the heck? What kind of friends are you? But anyways, whatever, you know, be competitive. Like, I'm just like, it's your stuff, not mine. My point is, my friend, when he was in the shithole, I did what was right because, one, God, as a mystic, I knew stuff was going down, but also my mom taught me manners. But also, I'm a friend, so I was pissed beyond bejesus, but I didn't think it was right of me to be pissed at him. I just didn't want to deal with a fako. And he's the one who taught me what fakos do. They're always going to stay the same. It's like Cusco at the end of the movie with Pacha. He doesn't tell Pacha the truth. He's afraid to tell Pacha the truth. He still needs therapy, you see? So when I meet fake people, their core wounds are not healed. So it's like, yeah, I love unconditionally my friend. He knows. I call him still an asshole. But I know he could be a better version of himself. And this is the part of where I can't motivate my friend to go and learn how to use his ventral energy. And even if he does, once he's done with that, I want to live now. There's that. So the part about the mind, it was not created to suffer. It was created to be used. It can experience itself. Dr. Daniel Siegel said the mind has its own state of self of being or something like that. If your brain is integrated, then you work with your two sides, and that's why you don't talk to yourself like shit. And if you're self-regulating, you're not going to think in a way of it's weighing me down because you're not feeling weighed down. I waited 7 days to go to my friend because I was very upset. I said, I'm going to wait till I can speak to her without being all this upset. And that was how it worked. And ever since a kid, I don't go into something with my full-fledged emotions. I first try to breathe. And if sometimes I catch myself having done something with charges, I'm like, you need to first allow yourself to do some breathing, calming, and then come in, because mental clarity only comes when you are being able to take that charge, take the thoughts, allow yourself to sit with it. And it's not because you don't want to express all of that which comes up. It's because when any one of us is reactive, because a charge still can mean you're reactive, you're breaking the habit of it, but also you're bringing your best behavior forth, but you're also wanting to bring a conversation, you know what I mean? So a part about being reactive, also your brain's dumbed down when you're angry. So that's the part of where the cortisol saturates the hippocampus, and you're going to be generalizing and doing stereotypes, and then you're going to also potentially say things you don't mean. And while some people think that's okay, I understand it. I just find that if you can grow yourself and become a mature version, it's really a lot more amazing in here. And also because not everybody is choosing to do this work. So really it's more of either you stay what I call weak, and this is that sympathetic energy, or you make use of your strength, which is the curiosity. And when you are empowered, that passion, it is expansive, but also you bring in a self-regulated body that allows integration to be present, if you will. And when I say that, what I mean is you allow yourself to be in a frequency of, I'm firmly aware of who I am, and I respect, because I'm going to differentiate and link. I'm going to be able to be in a room with others in the absence of being not only readable, quote unquote. So when you're neutral like this, a person who is insecure will perceive the energy, number one, and you will be, you know how when a kid gets told no, but not in a sympathetic way. No, it's a ventral no. Kids know that. And so remember that when you have emotionally immature people, they are actively still living out their very unconscious behavior. And it's not something that we need to be afraid of. But at the end of the day, as I wanted to just share, the mind, it's made for a lot more than what people give it credit for, and that's because they don't have yet their body in the forefront. When instead you are not your activated state, you are not those strong emotions, but you're self-aware, accountable, regulating, and you can talk about the emotions, you name them, you breathe through them, you're mastering that which are all the relationships and what happens in the world, and you remember that there's choice points. I always talk to God as a mystic. I know where we're headed. I know when I'm spotting choice points, that's for another episode, but as a person, I also know where we're headed, and our species always advances. So with the lovely, good scientific community, every person who wants to be their best self will be able to do so and enter the flow state, like I do, like you do, if you're still here probably. And when we are in sympathetic energy, knowing we want to get to ventral, we want to breathe and put up with the douchebags like my facade friend, or anyways, understanding it happens. Nobody has to do their self-regulating stuff. So at the end of the day, check out PayHip if you're new and you don't know about it. There's plenty of bundles, but there's a couple new products coming out, digital products, and check out Substack. Sign up, also subscribe, YouTube, TikTok, Spotify, and we will be back with more. Have a good one.